What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm taking you guys through my own transfer plan for the upcoming Game Week 3. Now I know Game Week 2 has not actually finished yet. We still have the Liverpool game coming up a few hours after I release this video, but I will update you guys with my latest rank and my latest transfer plan in the team selection, probably coming up on Wednesday or Thursday. So first of all, let me know in the comments down below how you guys are getting on in Game Week 2. It looks a better Game Week for my own team, thanks to most of my options actually returning FPL points. But you guys might have actually had a better Game Week because you own a differential like a certain Phil Foden. So let me know in the comments down below how you guys are getting on. That's going to be the first part of this transfer plan. If you guys not watched the transfer plan video last week, I'm going to start off this video looking at my own team, kind of doing a Game Week 2 review because that's always going to be important, looking back into the past Game Week to plan the future moves, as it will give us some context of the players, but also my own FPL team. Then after that, I'll be taking you guys through my transfer plan this game week with 1 free transfer and 0.5 in the bank. We're going to look to make a potential upgrade on either our defense or a certain Leon Bailey. Now you guys might have a similar plan to me, so that's why this video is going to be quite useful. But if you do have a transfer plan that's different to mine, comment it down below and I'll help you guys out. And also please remember the price rises and the price drops. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So starting off this video, and as I mentioned in my introduction, going over the Game Week 2 team review, and please remember the Liverpool vs Crystal Palace game still has to happen tonight. But in terms of the points that we managed to accumulate over Saturday and Sunday, we've managed 65 points, which is going to be a game week rank of 1.2 million, which takes us to an overall rank of about 1.3. So that is kind of halved our rank, but as I always say, I would not look at overall rank at all. I think maybe game week 9 or maybe game week 10, we can start looking at the game week rank, as right now the rankings are super volatile and between positions only a couple of points. But the most important thing about this kind of graphic is going to be the bottom right there, 1 free transfer, as unfortunately we did already use 1 last game week, so we didn't bank a transfer going into game week 2, so only the 1 free transfer and 0.5 in the bank, so we can make a nice upgrade as long as a player hasn't dropped or risen in price. But let's go over how we actually got that 65 points. Starting off, these points actually made no difference to our total score. These are going to be our bench points, but starting off with Danny Ward on the bench, the Arsenal fixture was going to be a tough one, and Leicester's defense is pretty shaky, so luckily his save points managed to give him some positive points as he ended on 1 point after conceding 4. Now nothing much more is to be said about Danny Ward. I thought this would be a tough game. Arsenal are looking quite strong, and that actually came true. We then had our biggest kind of benching headache of the game week. It was going to be whether to bench Leon Bailey or whether to start him. Unfortunately or fortunately, whatever way you guys want to kind of look at it, we didn't get any early team news over on Twitter, but I actually don't even think that team news, as I said in the deadline stream, would have changed it. I always had Leon Bailey on my bench. I wasn't really confident of him starting, and that's why I had him on the bench for his 1 point appearance. So our expectation of him being benched was actually pretty true. I won't lie to you guys and say that I was very confident of him being benched, but I still thought that Everton game would be quite tough for Aston Villa. Now Villa ended up winning that game 2-1 and Bailey only came off for about the last 15 minutes, and that resulted in only 1 point in game week 2. Then Andreas Pereira had about 75 minutes in that Fulham game. That game was actually pretty boring, and 3 points with the clean sheet was going to be what Andreas Pereira produced. Now he did actually go off with a knock, don't you know how serious that is going to be, but definitely something to monitor going into game week 3. And then finally we have Archer, who did not come off the bench because I think Aston Villa were winning that game 2-0. I don't think they were making too many attacking substitutions, and that's why the 4.5 forward remained on my bench, but also Stevie G's bench. So luckily this week we didn't have any kind of Kyle Walker on our bench with 6 points, and thankfully because we benched Leon Bailey, we actually got that benching debate under wraps. But now going on to our starting 11, and these are players actually going to impact our total points. I'm going to start off with the 3 Liverpool assets because, as I mentioned, they're actually still playing in a couple of hours against Crystal Palace. So we have Trent, Robert, and Salah upcoming. Now I'm getting a little bit nervous about this game because I did not actually captain Mo Salah, and in terms of the overall captaincy, Mo Salah was almost split with Haaland. I thought Erling Haaland would be captained by so many people, but as I mentioned in my team selection last week, maybe some managers forgot about their FPL teams, and therefore they had Mo Salah from game week 1's captain. But in terms of the overall rankings, at least Mo Salah is under 100% effectively owned, and therefore I'll still be shouting from him, and at the end of the day, I'm a Liverpool fan, so hopefully he does well. But the big thing is probably going to come down to Robertson versus Diaz. Our Crystal Palace are usually a better defensive side than attacking side, so I'm hoping for a Liverpool clean sheet. With injury to Matip and Joe Gomez probably deputizing there, I might be a little bit concerned about those odds. So let's just see if maybe Robertson outperforms Diaz. I'll be absolutely smiling, but if he does, then this might be another rough game week. Let me know what you guys are hoping for in the Liverpool vs Crystal Palace game. Did you actually captain Mo Salah? Do you own Diaz? Do you own Darwin Núñez? I'm expecting him to start up front, so that could be quite an interesting differential. So these players obviously will affect our total score, but I can't talk about them now because the game has not happened. But just stay tuned to my team selection where I give you guys the updated overall ranking and also talk about these Liverpool assets. So just please keep that in mind as the transfer plan goes on. Let's just say Mo Salah or Trent get injured. Touch wood that they won't, but let's just say they are. Obviously that will affect our transfer plan going into the next couple of days. But now let's go on to the players that have actually featured on Saturday or Sunday. We're going to start off with the Arsenal goalkeeper Ramsdale. Now I mentioned in the team selection last week that I wasn't too confident about Arsenal keeping a clean sheet. The main reason for that is that Leicester can't defend, so they have to attack if they want to get results at the end of the day. And just combine that with Maddison or Vardy, that quality of those options. And unfortunately Maddison did put the nail in the coffin, taking away that extra point for Ramsdale. Now yes, there was the own goal which was avoidable, and I just think to myself, if they didn't score that own goal, what would have happened? Maybe Ramsdale would have kept the clean sheet, but at the end of the day it happened, and they also conceded another one. But at least I didn't have too much expectation for Ramsdale, and that's how I'll take the 1 pointer after the 6 points last week. Now we had some better luck with the Man City defenders, and hopefully we would have. I mean, they did play Bournemouth at home, which is probably the best fixture in the Prem at the moment. So Cancelo and Walker both got a clean sheet, then Cancelo racked up an assist and 2 bonus points. So luckily this week Cancelo didn't get the yellow card and the 2 bonus points. He got an assist instead of a yellow card, which I'll take any day of the week. Now I was super happy that Walker managed to start, and I am a little bit concerned about him for the future as they have just signed a new left back, and Pep confirmed last week that he will remain with the Man City squad. But for the time being, I'm going to keep Kyle Walker. He's a great asset to have as long as he starts for Man City, and once he is dropped, I think that's when we ship him out. Now Game Week 2 just showed you the power of Cancelo. I mean, Game Week 1 already showed you got a yellow card but 2 bonus points as well. But now that he's getting attacking returns to boot, I think he's just a great overall FPL asset. So now going on to our last option in our kind of power back 5, we're going to go for Reece James. Now the Chelsea game has just ended. Reece James ended up scoring a goal after conceding, which I was super happy about. Now there is some concern about it being an own goal for the Harry Kane one, so just keep that in mind. These points might actually change, but I have actually given it about 45 minutes and there's been no update from FPL Twitter, so I'm just going to assume that Reece James got away with one there. Now we literally needed 5 minutes of Reece James playing right wing back. We saw Azpilicueta come onto the field. Reece James shifted out wide from the right centre back to the right wing back, and what happens? He ends up getting a goal. Now a couple minutes before that, he put on a plate for Havertz, who ended up skying the chance. So I was super annoyed with that one, but just shows you the attacking threat of Reece James at right wing back. Now yes, it might be a little bit of a concern there that Chelsea started him, or Tuchel started him at right centre back, but it was a tough game at the end of the day. And if you guys remember last season, Tuchel said that he's going to manage these minutes and play him at right centre back because it's less taxing on his fitness. Now I just think Reece James is undroppable, so if he's going to play right centre back instead of playing on the bench, I'll take that any day of the week. But as you guys can see, I'm just hoping that Trent and Robbo come in clutch, because then our back 5 will be absolute power and give us a little bit of backing to the reason why we actually went for these defenders. We're then going to shift to the midfield department, where unfortunately Pedro Neto yet again blanked, but don't worry, it gets worse than that. He kind of had an open goal chance, but took a first touch that was horrendous and took it away from goal. Now I don't really know what to do with the midfielder. Looks nailed in that lineup, but his attacking threat is simply not there, and therefore at 5.5, yes, he is quite cheap, but we might actually have to switch him up for some other options. Now Wolves overall yet again showing that they can't really score the goals. This was a game that I thought wouldn't be too bad for them, and they still couldn't score against newly promoted opposition. So yes, Pedro Neto is definitely in my transfer plan this week, but I might still give him another couple game weeks because the Wolves fixtures still are quite strong to that first wildcard. But a player that's definitely returning at his price point is going to be 6.0 million, Martinelli. Now simply, he looks like absolute FPL gold at the current moment. Looks nailed in that Arteta lineup. Arsenal are scoring goals. Martinelli is looking good. Arsenal looking good. What more can you ask for at that price point? Now the best thing out of the situation is that I do think he's outperforming Saka, getting more FPL points, is looking better, and is 2 million cheaper. So I'm super happy with the Brazilian, and he'll remain on my squad as long as he's starting for Arsenal, which I do see for the foreseeable future. The nice thing about Arsenal as well is they have some great fixtures coming up, and against some newly promoted sides, I do think Martinelli could do some damage. Now unfortunately, a player that I thought would do damage against newly promoted sides but didn't was going to be Erling Haaland, with only 5 points doubled to 10. So yes, my captain this week, regrettably after looking at Mo Salah's fixtures coming up, but I honestly thought that that Bournemouth game was going to be a nice one for Man City, and at the end of the day, it kind of was. But what happens? Yet again, 4 goals scored for the team. At least Haaland got an assist where Harry Kane blanked last week. But just remember that Harry Kane still outperformed Haaland in Game Week 2. But at the end of the day, the result was there. Unfortunately, Haaland got minimal touches. I think he was in the top 5 lowest touches in that fixture. And when you're playing against Bournemouth, that's kind of worrying. But it is what it is at the end of the day. The transfer was logical, the fixture was logical, the captaincy was logical. But now let's see what Mo Salah does against Crystal Palace. But at least one of our forwards actually returned quite a few points. It's going to be Jesus with a massive score of 19 points. I think it was 2 goals, 1 assist, but I could be wrong on that one. He could have actually got a hat-trick. But all I know is that he got a lot of FPL points this week, and I'm super happy that I kept hold of him. I generally think though most people did. I think in the deadline stream we had a question, would you hold on to Jesus if he blanked for Game Week 2? I said yes, because the Arsenal fixtures look so strong. But at the end of the day, most people actually own him, as he is the highest owned player in FPL at the current moment. But as I said with Martinelli, nice fixtures coming up, so really happy that both these two Brazilians have found their form, and let's just hope that continues into the foreseeable future. So overall guys, 65 points at the current moment, but Robbo, Trent and Salah remain. Did you guys actually captain Salah? Are you looking forward to the game in a couple of hours? Or were you like myself and went for Haaland? But right now, that split is kind of 50-50. Let me know in the comments down below how you guys got on, but let's talk about our transfer plan. So now going on to our transfer plan, and as I said on our introduction and our team review of Game Week 2, I have 1 free transfer and 0.5 in the bank. So we can actually make a nice upgrade as long as the player has not dropped in price that we're selling or risen in price for the player that we're buying. So kind of it's going to be a nominal change. So right now the player on my radar, and there's probably going to be on the thumbnail, and we spoke about it in the introduction, it's going to be Leon Bailey from Aston Villa. Now there's kind of 2 reasons for this. The first reason is that Bailey is simply not starting. Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings look pretty good against Everton, and that means that Leon Bailey probably will be on the bench for most game weeks. So the first reason is kind of the reduced minutes and the chance of him being benched, but the second reason is that Aston Villa fixtures are getting quite tough. So as you guys can see on screen, Crystal Palace, West Ham, and then Arsenal away, all 3 of those are tough games. Even though West Ham just lost to Nottingham Forest, I still consider them to be quite a good team. So I'm not expecting too much from Leon Bailey, and I have to kind of start him in 1 or 2 of these game weeks because Pedro Neto's Wolves fixtures also on a little bit of a tough spot. So that's why for my own team, it might not be for your guys' team. If you can just bench Bailey, have a good starting 11, I probably wouldn't take him out. But for my own team, I actually have to consider it because Andreas Pereira currently has a knock. But let's just say that Andreas Pereira comes back from that knock. He looks fine, as he should be for Game Week 3. He has Brentford at home, and I think that's a fine game to go with, even though they just beat United by 4 goals. So if Andreas Pereira is back in the lineup, I might actually start him for Game Week 3. But if he's not, and he's going to carry that knock, then Leon Bailey definitely has to go. So in terms of Leon Bailey, who should we take him out for? Well, the first option that's been quite popular is going to be De Silva from Brentford. Now, the reason I want to talk about De Silva is I don't really want to go for him, but I want to tell you guys about what my opinion is. So right now, De Silva's had a price rise on Saturday night, so currently it's going to be 4.6 million, but that is still pretty cheap and only 0.1 more expensive than the cheapest midfielder. So if you guys want to make this move 100%, but where I would heed caution is that if you are expecting De Silva to play every single game, I don't actually think he will. Brentford have just signed Damsgaard, don't exactly know how that midfield 3 is going to look. I guess Damsgaard could play left wing or right wing, but currently I do think he'll fill in the midfield slot, and therefore De Silva could actually have his place rotated. So I'm not super confident about him actually starting every game. Yes, he has had good stats. He's got 2 goals from 2 shots on target. The XG, if you do look it up, is not going to be pretty, so don't go look at that if you want to bring him in. But I am a little bit cautious about De Silva, and the simple reason for that is that I am expecting him to be my starting 11 for some game weeks, and I just don't think he's going to start every single game. But listen, if you guys are a Brentford fan, comment it down below. Do you think he's actually nailed in the starting 11? We might have some news about him in the upcoming weeks, but as far as I know, I don't think he's 100% nailed. But look, if you still want to go for a Brentford attacker, I can understand that. They have some great fixtures coming up. Fulham away, Everton at home, Crystal Palace away. Not the easiest fixtures in the world, but Brentford are playing quite well at the moment, and therefore you might want to jump on this bandwagon. Now, there are some other Brentford attackers to go for. We just mentioned Damsgaard. Yes, he just signed for the club. He might get integrated slowly. We have Jensen that's looked pretty strong, but it's actually hard for me to predict which Brentford middle 3 is going to start for the foreseeable future. So that's all for my own team. I'm actually looking to upgrade Leon Bailey. At 4.5, there's not many options to actually go for. Yes, we have 1 or 2 that might actually play some games, but in terms of that cheap budget options, there's not many, and at 5.0 million, it's not that great at all. So let's kind of use that 0.5 in the bank to upgrade Leon Bailey to a 5.5. We have some options in and around there. We have Aronson from Leeds. I just don't really like that. A Chelsea fixture coming up. We had Rodrigo, but he's risen in price, so I can't really afford him. And in terms of the rest of the 5.5s, there's not many that kind of catch my eye. So here's where we kind of go, a little bit differential. Now, you guys might absolutely hate this, but I'm actually looking at Anthony Gordon from Everton. So yes, an Everton option. They've looked absolutely dire in the past couple game weeks. Last season they looked terrible, but the fixtures coming up aren't that bad, and currently Gordon played game week 2 out of position, played 90 minutes at centre forward. So that's why currently he's on my radar, but obviously that makes Damari Gray, McNeil also great options to go for. But I just am a little bit concerned about some rotation at front line, where it seems like Frank Lampard does like Gordon quite a bit. Fixtures upcoming on Nottingham Forest. Yes, they did just beat West Ham, but I don't think they're going to continue that form for the rest of the season. Then have Brentford away, which is a tougher game, and then Leeds away, and Leeds actually look better defensively. But I still do think there's a chance at 5.5 for Gordon to get some returns in this one, and that's why I do like him at that price point. The nice thing is I can start him this week. The fixture, in my opinion, a newly promoted side, Nottingham Forest, didn't look great in game week 1. I can start him this week, bench Pedro Neto and Andreas Pereira, and then when the Wolves fixtures kind of ease up, I can just bring the Wolves midfielder back into the lineup. But I know what you guys are probably saying. You probably hate this transfer, and I can understand it, but what I will say is that 5.5, there's hardly any options currently in the game, unless you guys want to downgrade to a De Silva at that cheaper price point, but he won't start every single game week. But I guess if you need the money, the downgrade makes sense. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this move. I know, as I said, you probably don't like it, but I'm going with an open mind into game week 3, and this could always change heading into that team selection coming up on Wednesday or Thursday. So post-production Dave, you're going to hop on this track because I forgot to tell you guys about another transfer plan that I could potentially do, and that involves Pedro Neto from Wolves. So the 5.5 midfielder, as I've mentioned, has not been performing up to scratch. Even though he is quite cheap, there are some other options in and around that price point that are slightly better. So yes, I could actually upgrade Pedro Neto from 5.5 to a 6 mil midfielder, but currently at 6 mil, the options aren't that great. So there are some options around that 5.5 bracket. I've already mentioned some of them, but the one I currently have my eye on is going to be Gross from Brighton. So I know what you're saying, he's not really the best FPL asset in the past seasons, but he looks to be on great form at the current moment, and the Brighton fixtures don't look that bad. So in terms of Pedro Neto, currently has Spurs away, and then he has Newcastle at home. Now the Newcastle game is quite tough to call, but that's got 0-0 written all over it, and I'm not expecting Wolves to actually score there. He then however has Bournemouth away, which I think is an okay fixture. Wolves currently I think should score against Bournemouth, and therefore Pedro Neto might be involved. But now looking at the right hand side of your screen, in terms of Brighton, there's some nice fixtures coming up, and the best thing about Brighton is that currently they are actually playing pretty well. So they have West Ham away, which isn't the best fixture in the world, but West Ham as well aren't playing that great. Currently just lost against Nottingham Forest a couple of hours ago, but then they have Leeds at home and Fulham away. Now both those two teams have improved defensively, but I do think on paper that Brighton should do well against them. And as I said, they currently are playing pretty good football, so I'm expecting big things from them for at least the next couple of game weeks. So this is going to be another transfer plan that I could potentially do. The nice thing about this is that even though Gross has risen in price with that 0.5 left in the bank, if we do want Perisic, for example, Walker to Perisic, I can then afford him still because Perisic dropped in price, I think, yesterday. So in terms of the price points, this move still looks quite good because I do want to bring in a Spurs fullback eventually, but we might want to give Perisic another week or two to just get his fitness up. So let me know what you guys think about this move, and do you think this is better than taking Bailey out? But I guess the only concern is that we then are losing Pedro Neto for those nice Wolves fixtures, and we still have to keep Leon Bailey on our bench. But this is best wrap the video, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. As I said, let me know how your game week 2 is kind of going on. Is it a great game week? Is it a bad one? And what are you hoping for from this Liverpool game coming up in a few hours' time? But on sign off, it's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.